after the artist talk, but we thought we'd begin this afternoon by welcoming Bonita here with us. We've just finished installing the exhibition. We thought this would be a great opportunity to hear from the artist herself about these wonderful works that we have here gathered under the title of Future Tense. So we've got half an hour for Bonita to take us through the exhibition, talking about some of these works and some of the major themes that might be consonant between all of the works in the show. So if you'd just like to join me in welcoming Bonita.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming along. Closer. Is that better? Is it on?
Yep.
Yes, it's on. You could. Okay. Well, I think probably I should start talking about my childhood, which was on the Murray River, and my parents were extremely busy. They were on a returned soldiers' property, establishing a vineyard and citrus, and they didn't really have that much time to be helicopter parents. So I call it benign neglect, the parenting method of benign neglect. We'd be fed in the morning, thrown out into the yard to play, and brought back in for meals, and that was pretty much it. And there were three things I was told not to do. Don't get into a car with a stranger. Don't go down the river by yourself, which of course I did. And don't use the axe, use the tomahawk. Okay, so they were the three instructions. And so I was brought up along the Murray and grew to love the natural environment so much. It was just so rich, so beautiful. There were scar trees along the river tracks and an Aboriginal community, so I was very much aware of Australia's Indigenous history from a young child. And I used to see rubbish put out, into the bush, and I think, who would do that, After art school, I left the country. I went to London, and London at that time was extremely polluted. The air pollution was just unbelievable. And that's what started me off making work based on fantasy creatures, particularly after going along to the British Museum and seeing the Greek antiquities, the Egyptian antiquities, and the wonderful combination of the human form with animal form for conceptual reasons. And so I was thinking, what creature would represent us as a mythological beast? And I figured the locust was the one that was the closest equivalent to the way we treat the environment. This was back in 1974-5. And after London, I went to New York for a year and a half, and it was even worse there. So I started this series of the locust people. Here they've been relaxing on their patio, and something's happened, something startled them. The woman's just leaping up out of her banana lounge, and the guy's going, hey, what? So it's their peaceful existence is disturbed by something. You can see a photograph of me over here with my trippy-dippy Kodak dress on with some of the locust people. And from the locust people, in the early 80s, I was artist in residence in Kunsthaus Britannien, and I got pregnant. Oh my God. What? I have to start being grown up, I thought to myself. Anyway, interesting to me, apart from being pregnant, was there were all these older women who had little dogs as companions, but I hardly saw any older men in the streets at all. And I figured they must have been the widows or women who were unable to get a partner because so many German men were killed during the Second World War. And this relationship that they had with their dogs was really lovely. They'd have them in their handbags on the U-Bahn, and you know, I remember seeing one woman with a dog with no legs, and she was pulling him along on a little trolley. So, and of course the young people had dogs too, and there were police dogs and companion dogs for blind people and so on. And at that time I was thinking a lot about history and how history is really a fiction. Our history is a fiction. It's you know, as they say, history is written by the people who are at the top, not the vanquished. And so one of the things about history is there's hardly any mention of women, how the women lived, their contributions, etc. It's all about wars and so on and so forth. So I decided to reinvent history and invented a dog woman who is the real basis of our culture, of our heritage, of our culture, and she is showing the history of the dog woman to her unborn child on the left. And after the child was born, my daughter Marina, I gave lectures to people about the dog woman, and the lecture would go something like this. Woof, woof, woof. Woof, 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 woof. Etc. For about, I don't know, 3/4 of an hour, while I showed all the images of dog women in art. There's just so many artworks with dogs in it, I can't tell you how many. So this is sort of the beginning of this interest in combining the human with animals as a conceptual premise. But we'll just go next door to have a look at the snabbits. By the way, if you have any questions, just butt in, okay? So, am I close enough? Yeah, good. Okay, so in the late 80s, genetic engineering started to become a thing, and again I was thinking about our future, the future of our environment, and you know, the species being destroyed, and how we're going to feed hundreds of people. Global warming was starting to come onto the horizon, and so on. And I'm not quite sure, to be honest, where the idea for the snabbits came from, but I do remember that the rabbit part of it is based on, as a cast of a polystyrene point-of-sale rabbit that I acquired one Easter. So maybe the Easter bunny was my inspiration. Anyway, so the snabbits were genetically engineered as a very easy source of food because they can't run away. and they taste really nice, you know, rabbits, snails. The French have been eating snails forever, and we used to eat rabbits when I was a kid, so they can't be too bad. My brother and father used to go out shooting them. So the snabbits are a feral creature now because they were let loose after the Great Monsoon, which of course refers to global warming. And they've taken over the earth, but they don't like to be killed, so they hide. But they also play, you know, so they hang out together and try and hide. Some of them get quite engaged in their environment. For instance, this one over here is having a standoff, right? Yeah. So have a look around, you'll find them doing all sorts of lovely things together. These ones are mesmerised by a little fan. The ones over there in that group of objects are the in crowd. Yes.
Bonita,
Yes.
I wanted to ask, this work dates from 1989.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about how you reconfigure works in different installations? Like how many times have you shown the snabbits?
Okay, I'm pretty sure the first time was for a show in New Caledonia that was a survey of Australian art. And at that time, the snabbits were actually half a snabbit cut in half, and I put them inside as a stairwell, you know, the back of the stairs, the space behind stairs, and they were painted blue, and they were on what do you call it, conveyor belt inside the stairs. So that, I think, was the first iteration. Another time I built these structures that looked as if they might have been down by the sea, you know, the sort of ocean structures like jetties that had fallen apart, and they're all hiding up in the structure. Recently I put them together for a show in Canterbury, Folkestone and London, and as preparation, one of the people who worked in the Canterbury Gallery just started collecting all the rubbish she found on the streets and so on, and so each time I modified the arrangement with all of this stuff. Another time I built a little space using doors with all this blue paint dribbling down on the inside and on the glass, with just a porthole rather, of clear glass, so you could peep in through the clear glass and see the snabbits inside turning blue. So yeah, they've taken on lots of different guises. Yeah.
And they're always accompanied by the text?
Yes, I started writing about them fairly early on, and this is, I think, the final version. I think that's the final version. Yeah. So have a read. It's a very sad story. So have a hanky or a tissue close by. Yeah. Yeah.
Shall we move into
Yes. Let's. It was fun, by the way, using all of this electronic stuff. Okay, so in, I think it was 2016, I was notified that I'd been invited to exhibit in Documenta 14, which is, I guess you all know, is one of the most prestigious Biennale style international shows. It happens every 3 years. And the process was that I would be going to Athens and Kassel in 1916 to do field work, to sort of familiarise myself with the two cities where Documenta was going to be held. It was a new thing. Documenta wasn't just going to be in Kassel, Germany, it was going to be in Athens as well. And I went to Athens first, and of course, you know, had a look at the rivers there. And the rivers there are so sad. Back in the 50s, they decided that the rivers flowing through Athens were a real nuisance, and that they put them underground. So here's the Ephesus River. That's where it starts going under the city, and that's where it comes out of the city up the top. And the photograph down the bottom is the headwaters of the Ephesus up in the hills around Athens. And the river here is the Elysos River, and similarly it's great big concrete canal, and both of them were absolutely disgustingly polluted with all kinds of plastic stuff, polystyrene, etc. Because at that stage Greece was in a hard place as far as their economy went, and I think the rubbish collection in the city wasn't quite up to it, and people were throwing rubbish all over the place, particularly down near the sea, and of course it was all going into the sea. So I decided that plastic pollution would be the thing that I'd work with in Athens. And this is the outcome of that. So I decided it should be a museum display set in the future, and that we'd use CRISPR, which is a very simple, easy way of engineering genomes, combining the I was trying to explain to you something scientific here, and I'm terrible at it. But anyway, the idea was to combine creatures that are on our Earth, like dogs and cats and birds and fish and so on and so forth, with a living thing that digests plastic that was discovered in a Japanese rubbish tip by researchers, and this is true. There is this.
So in 2016, it was published, the outcomes of this study, that Japanese researchers had identified an enzyme that will actually eat processed plastic.
Yeah.
And this is seen as an incredible kind of adaptation.
So these creatures are the outcome of those experiments back in 2016, and by 2054 they're all out there in the environment eating up our plastic for us. What a wonderful outcome. And just to remind everybody what life was like before plastic, these photographs here represent 1906 or 900. Anyway, it was the year that Bakelite was invented, and Bakelite was the first synthetic material to be invented. So that was the beginning of synthetic plastic. So this is nature in its pristine state on this wall. This wall here are the taxonomies that I've written for all of the creatures. I love to use humour in my work, so a lot of them are humorous, but I also, in a lot of them, make comments about human beings. Like one of them is called Hell's Angel, say no more. So the one that seems to get the most attention is DJ Trump Pussy. Okay, so this extraordinary feline is two-faced. Face one is crowned by DJ Trump Pussy's distinctive cream-coloured hair colour, and that's him there. That's DJ Trump Pussy. And after I'd written the initial taxonomy, it was discovered by scientists, biologists, that he was actually also related to the box jellyfish. And as you probably all know, the box jellyfish has no brain. Anyway, so on we go. So that's probably it really. But have a look at the touch screen. There's a lot of information there as well. So I wanted the installation to be really informative, as well as giving everybody a big kick to cut down on the plastics and be really advocates for the reduction of plastic we're putting out there. It's ridiculous. Most of the things made out of plastic are absolutely useless and could be made just as well out of recyclable or benign materials. I remember my mother going shopping with a basket over her arm, and there was no plastic. She got everything in paper bags or wrapped up in newspaper. Wrapped up in newspaper. And guess what? We all survived. We did. We are here to tell a story. We used to get our fish and chips in newspaper. Yeah, anyway, closing off with that very startling fact. Thank you very much.
Should we open up to a couple of questions, Bonita?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did you first study?
Oh, I studied in Melbourne. I went for 2 years to Caulfield Tech.
Right.
And then I taught in a country school for 1 year to get some money, and then went back and finished off 2 years at Paran Tech. And then in the 90s I did my master's at Sydney College, and then around to 1999 I graduated from the University of Western Sydney with a PhD. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah,
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here. I'm an elder from this area. I have loved ones in the country called Griffith, so I'm pleased to give people a welcome. Yura, going as an army. To Jumobi Rono, welcome to this land. Meganton is the name of his name. And when I'm saying that, I'm honouring the Turrbal and Jesuit people, and all those others who have walked this way. I'm particularly interested in the display, being a saltwater man, and the nets, of course, when we're talking in terms of Owangan, the dolphin, that is part of our culture and part of our history of saltwater people, Wanamuka people. The nets are the ones that do the damage to the nose dolphin and all the other sea creatures, big and the tortoise as well. And their future is in jeopardy because of such things as the nets. People are alarmed at the amount of sharks they suspect are in the waters, and there's a rush to have shark nets put up to defend people from the sharks, but the big danger to people. And the future is this type of netting is about to place it. As I said, as a saltwater man, the dolphins have got a particular connection with my people, the Coronega people. What we used to do in earlier times was to use them when the fish were shoaling up. The men would smack this top of the water with the spears, and the dolphins would respond. And herd the fish in closer and closer. And then our men would walk out in chest deep of water with handmade nets from the yarrow line and collect the fish as part of the sustenance. So the connection we had with all the creatures, large and small, is there in the history of our very being. So what we do about the nets, I'm not quite sure. Is there some idea of the permanence of them and where, and how we can start dealing with them, and how we deal with nature conservation or other activities that we can tap into to carry out those responsibilities. I'm pleased to be able to say those things, and the amount of people that are here is an indication that they share the same viewpoint. If they're unaware of it, they come here and they go away armed with the question in their mind, how do we do about it, and how do we work collectively to ensure that we play our role now and the future generation that will enjoy it. Thank you. You're up.
Thank you so much, Uncle Bob. Well, perhaps I should just round out by saying a few more formal acknowledgements in terms of the exhibition. Thank you, Uncle Bob, for coming and welcoming us this afternoon, which you always do. And it's wonderful to have you and Annie here. And we congratulate you on your recent achievements in terms of a native title for Mulgunpin, and wish you all the best in terms of that journey. Thanks everyone for coming this afternoon. It's been an incredible privilege for us to work with such an eminent Australian artist, someone whose practice I've been aware of since I was studying art history at university, and who it's just a thrill to have the privilege to work with. As you've seen, Bonita has a very incredibly inventive practice. This is just one particular strand, and one that we thought might be a way for us to showcase this work, which was shown in Documenta in 2017. This is the first time that this work has been shown in Australia since then, and we're really proud to be able to present it here at Bonita. But it speaks back through Bonita's practice to a whole thematic of work which deals with the kind of interesting futuristic speculations upon what interspecies relationships might look like, projections into the future in a very speculative way. This future that might be, in some ways here, somewhat optimistic in terms of adaptation and adaptability. The snabbits are a little more apocalyptic, perhaps, where they turn on us, and but then right back through to works like Dog Woman, which also incorporates another incredibly respected theme of your work, dealing with feminism and women, and then back to the Locust People, which is probably the beginning of this kind of thinking through from the early 1970s. So we've got the benefit of seeing this particular thread of practice throughout, right to this new iteration. And we're very proud to have Bonita do some field work here in Brisbane, along the banks of Meanjin and the Brisbane River, and to spend some time documenting koalas in Tui Forest, water dragons just along the river. So it's So in terms of thinking about how Bonita is constantly adapting and reiterating her work for new audiences and new exhibition spaces and contexts. So, also, yes.
Add something to and it could be absolutely obvious, but right from the beginning when I started work about the Murray River, I wanted to be a witness for everybody. Not everybody can drive from one end of the Murray River to the other. Not everybody can do what I do. And I feel like I bring the reality of situations to people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. And I mean, Bonita, you remain intrepid. Okay, so after you did your field work here with us a couple of months ago, she went straight to the Galilee Basin, to the Adani blockade, and just documented and started thinking about a new body of work which will deal with that particular situation in terms of water, in particular within Australia and the Galilee Basin. So, and then back to earlier this year when you were at the Menindee Lakes and you laid down amongst all of the dead fish and had your friend photograph you. And if you haven't seen that image, it's incredibly arresting of Bonita as Ophelia, perhaps, amongst those, that ravaging image of the dead fish on those lakes. So we applaud you. We need artists like you, Bonita, to show us new ways of thinking, new ways of imagining the world, and ways forward as well, interestingly within your practice in the way that you often deal with the future scenario. So I just wanted to acknowledge the incredible privilege of working with you. I have to also acknowledge Milani Gallery, your representative, who assisted us in putting together the exhibition, the private lenders to the exhibition, and also our wonderful staff and volunteers here working at Griffith University Art Museums. This has been a challenging one for us, but we've enjoyed every minute of it, and we've all been completely inspired by you, Bonita, and your forward thinking. And that said, I also want to say thank you to everyone here for your support during our recent months. It's been a challenging time for us here, and we really appreciate you all being here today and continuing to support the work we do and the ideas and the artists who we support and we put forward as exemplars within contemporary artistic practice. So I think thank you all for coming and enjoy your afternoon.